in some of the literature that FIU has about the Golden Promise program, they mentioned this notion of being debt-free, which I thought was a really interesting um, kind of idea and notion, because this idea of not having any debts, whether it's financial or non-financial in other ways, I thought was something that was worth exploring. And I really wanted to hear from students who were experiencing these things. And I ultimately found that the Golden Promise program was a really important financial tool for many of my students, because it allowed them to attend FIU without having to take on any financial debt or a lot of financial debt, quote unquote. Um, but that a lot of the students that I interviewed, and granted it's a small sample size, so we cannot generalize to a larger population, um, but a lot of the students were experiencing debt in other ways. And the ways I define these debts in my paper are whether it's family relationships and obligations, there's some social, cultural, ethnic, racial ways that students are indebted as well. So it wasn't simply the money that they owed FIU uh, or the federal government or whoever for the loans, but it was the things that they owed their families, their communities, etc.
Okay.
So debt-free ultimately is kind of a problematic way of describing somebody. And I think universities and colleges need to be, the whole purpose kind of what I was getting at is the idea that colleges and universities, I want them to look at things a little bit more holistically rather than just thinking like, oh, okay, here's, an extra $1,300 a semester that should cover you. You should be able to successfully graduate in 4 years. And again, I wrote this many times that the point of this work isn't to minimize what FIU is doing or minimize the program at all, because it's incredibly important, but also maybe creating other sorts of programming for students and that would qualify for the Golden Promise program, or all students in general, really. But thinking about students more than just kind of like, okay, we gave them some money, now they're good. And the debt, financially versus non-financially, that could be even other debts they have financially, like a car payment, or they're helping their families out with groceries or whatever it happens to be. So when I say we, I mean higher education professionals or colleges and universities, when we look at these students as, because they're not paying a tuition or room and board, that they don't have other expenses in their lives or other obligations that they have to pay or have to do.